Hey guys, I'm Dante and welcome back to my channel, The Burgles Art. And welcome back to Quick Vids, where I show you how to make a prop or costume in a short amount of time. Now I'm still on my Samurai Jack fix, so today I'm going to make a Aku mask, a full rounded Aku mask, the Shogun of Sorrow, that you can wear to Comic-Con and add to either have a full Aku costume or just a suit and tie guy with a giant flaming demon for a head. Anyway, let's jump into the supplies, which I have all lined out here. Now the base of this project is going to be made out of EVA foam. What I got here is about a ½ inch thick foam. You could go thinner if you wish, but I feel this thickness helps keep the structure. We're going to also need some elastic bands. This plastic mesh you could pick up in some art stores and even fabric stores. It's sometimes used for knitting or pattern making. This will act as our visor so we can see outside of our costume. You might want to also get some wooden dowels, as they call them, wooden sticks pretty much. These are super thin, about a ½ inch in diameter. So I got 3 of these to be safe. We got some black cloth, cheap, lightweight black cloth, and some red fake bird feathers. Now these are optional. We'll touch more on these later. But for tools, you're going to obviously need rulers. You're going to need straight edges. You're going to need a fabric ruler. This is really important to get the shape of your head, your distance from your ear to your chin, etc. Of course, you're going to need cutting tools. I have an X-Acto knife. You can use razor blades, box cutters. Always be careful. And speaking of being careful, we have ourselves a glue gun. This can heat up very, very fast. So be careful with that. And of course, among all of this, you're also going to need your reference. So I went online and found a reference of Aku, and here it is right now. And this right here is going to be what we're going to be basing our main mask off of. We can always do a little edit to the proportions, but you still want to aim for this reference. Okay, now that we have our supplies and our equipment, let's jump to the floor because we're going to need a lot of space for this. And let's start using the EVA foam to create Aku's skull, which is pretty much just a big round can. Shall we? Now before you even start cutting into your EVA foam, you gotta take proper measurements. Now normally if this was just a helmet around the top of the head, you wrap it around above the ears into the forehead, right about there. And with that said, the measuring tape says I have about a 22-inch big old dome. However, in this case, we're doing something that goes around the entire face. That includes the nose, and in my case, the glasses, which come out straight forward, because I don't wear contacts. So your best bet, do the measurement of your forehead. Do it twice. Always double check on all your measurements. Do it twice. And in my case, what I did, I extended it by a few inches all around. So I basically went from 22 to like 24, then 25, 26, etc. In fact, I even wrapped it around my glasses at one point just to try and estimate what I was looking for, which gave me about 25, 26. And then you would go take some paper, some art paper, something a bit stiff, not like not newspaper, for example, and cut a prototype tube, because that's what we're making a tube for Aku, and slide it onto your head. If the prototype tube works, then you could use that to cut the EVA foam. You also want to look at the reference again. So here's our reference right here. Now you notice Aku's head, or rather his face, sits kind of high up. He has a really long neck and his face is just up on top. We're going to estimate that Aku's face sits halfway on his head. You also want to estimate where you're going to put your eyes. Do you want to look through Aku's mouth? That might not work with the proportions. In my case, my entire head is going to be the neck. My eyes are actually going to sit right beneath his lips, pretty much having his flaming beard go right down my nose. That's what I'm doing. If you want to change it up, you want to look through his mouth, that's fine. Be aware though, that will change proportions between his head and his neck, but whatever works best for you, you do it. So, now that we have our tube a la Aku, now's the time to start cutting up the holes we need to make everything work. We're talking the holes that will hold the horns on, the holes that will be, of course, my eyesight and how I could breathe. Now this is a little silly, but we basically just put it right over our head. Like this. And when you do that, take a marker, something bright. I'm using purple, but it does stand out on the gray. And when you have it on your head, where your nose sits, mark that on the inside. I've already done that. I've done it, in fact, on the seam here. That's going to be my center point for everything. While I mark that on the inside, I will then add a few inches and cut all of this out of the tube. That's my eyesight right there. Once I have the eyesight, and I know I can see properly all around me, I can then start measuring out areas for the horns, which would be grounded using our wooden sticks. One stick will go on top of my head, which will help keep the helmet from sliding back and forth. And it will stick out on the side to make the side horns, and then the rest, boom, boom, boom. Now we're doing that because we need to make sure everything's kind of held together tightly. And as you start cutting holes out to see through the front, it might lose its shape. So be aware of that. So once again, double measurement, use your nose, and then cut the eyesight right out of it. So here's Aku's skull so far. You have the main tube, which is supported by these wooden dowels going straight through. I also added a lid on top to help it keep its round shape no matter how much I squeeze onto it. Now if you notice, the lid has slits. That's because much like the eye socket where I'm going to be looking through, we're going to be adding the plastic mesh. This will of course block my eyes from the outside view and allow ventilation on top, because you don't want to be sweating inside this helmet. Let's face it, it is foam. Now let me show you how I'm going to make sure this thing doesn't wobble on my head by adding a few pieces on the inside as well. Now let's imagine this is one of the cross beams, the lower cross beam that's touching the top of my head. Now when I measured it, I gave it about 1 inch or so to give me some cushion. So I went ahead and took some miscellaneous foam pieces. You always want to hold on to your extra foam. And I made this. So essentially this will glue onto the lowest wooden dowel inside, and that could also add a piece of more soft foam to have it sit on top of my head. I also am going to add these double layers to the front side, or rather the inside front of the dome, and these will be pressed right against my forehead. That way my nose doesn't constantly bump into the front of the mask. Once again, giving about 1 inch or so to add any extra soft foam. So these are going to help keep that in place. Of course, you want to make sure it doesn't keep wobbling everywhere. So you might want to use elastic. Let me show you what I mean of how to use this elastic exactly. So you take your elastic, and the idea is to make it into a chin strap, gluing one side to each side of the interior. For anyone out there who's ever thought about making a fursuit or even just a furry head, usually they do 3 straps, one across the top, one over the dome, and then one here, and then build a helmet around. We're working backwards. We made the helmet first, and then we're going to glue everything together. So it's a little tricky, but basically I'm just going to attach one side here, measure it out, and then glue the other side inside, making sure the whole thing doesn't just slide back and forth on me. Let's get gluing. Okay guys, we are right now at the midpoint of our project. Here is Aku with his horns attached. Once again, always refer back to your reference, double check everything, double measure everything, and you get what you got here. The horns are attached to the 3 wooden poles I put inside, like I mentioned. I've also glued on the front visor and the ventilation on top. Now I'm stopping here because I wish to use the other horns as templates on my black cloth. I mentioned earlier the cloth is a give and take. If you don't want it, don't use it. You can use something else. I plan to use the cloth to make socks, if you would, that will slide over each horn and over the face, or rather the head of Aku. I want to use cloth as the finishing point. That way, if I was to make a costume, the material would match all the way down. If you want, you could use Worbla, but remember, Worbla is heavy and this is going on your head. Or you can use thin sheets of foam, more like craft foam, and just wrap that around to cover all the messy details. For those of you wondering, normally I would keep the horns off and do a sock for the head first, do a sock for each horn, then attach the horns. But I glued it on for now just to show you. If it's kind of hard for me, I might remove the horns and re-glue them later on. Let's keep going. So just real quick, I want to show you what I'm doing for the cloth. This is 1/2 of what will be the entire tube of Aku's head. Basically, I did a front piece here, which has a curve in the front. So my shoulders will be here and here, and this will overlap over my neck, just to cover up the neck area. I figured I'll basically just cut 2 of these, and rather than sew them together and try and squeeze them over the head, I'll just glue one on either side. Both sides of Aku's head now have the horns attached. I'm using some aluminum wire right here, 1, 2, and 3, just to connect the horns and give them just a little bit more stability when I walk around. Now I know I kept saying I was going to make a sock and roll it over each of these horns. However, I realized the glue gun sticks very well to this cloth. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue the cloth right around it, all around the seams, and it should be nice and neat, and we should be finished with the cloth momentarily. Okay, with Aku's head wrapped in cloth and set to the side, we now move on to his ugly mug. Aku's head here was basically made of several sizes of foam. We're talking the 1/2 inch thick gray foam, this 1/4 inch thick blue foam, and I have these thin sheets of like almost paper thin sheets of foam that I'm using to just give everything a nice 3-dimensional lift to it, rather than make it one giant piece. Now, fun idea I had here, I took some metal wire and I fastened the wire, poked it in some spots, bent it, poked it through the foam going all the way down the beard. And as you notice, the teeth are separated. One sits higher up on that 1/2 inch, one sits lower down on that 1/2 inch. The final idea will be to fasten Aku's head from roughly here up onto the main head, onto the main helmet we've made. And then, once in a while, if I want to do some fun interaction, I'll just stroke his beard and make him talk. So this piece will be glued on afterwards, once I've given all of this, including the eyes, a nice big coat of peel coat, Plasti Dip. So I'll Plasti Dip the whole thing, then I'll glue the eyes on top, I'll glue the teeth on the bottom, and then I'm also going to add some interesting detail with the eyebrows. Remember before I pulled out this? These cheap fake red feathers. I'm going to take these, rip them up, tear them up, and paint red and glue these feathers onto the flaming eyebrows and beard. I wanted to have a kind of texture to his flaming eyebrows. Most people just do a simple cutout, but you could use this to give, once again, a nice 3-dimensional feel to your piece. So let's paint this, coat it, and add these on, and we'll see how that final product comes out. Okay guys, so here we are with our Aku face. I did the eyebrows first to test out how it works. Essentially, I took this decoupage or Mod Podge, pretty much just like Elmer's glue. I also took some miscellaneous paints. These are water-based paints for an airbrush and some acrylic, whichever works best for you, once again. And I did the rim and the sides of our pieces. And then once those were done, like a primer, I then went and started gluing down these feathers. Once the feathers were glued into place, I took a pair of scissors and trimmed them down to kind of match the pattern of the eyebrows. Once again, you could do this or just keep it as a flat material, just like the foam. You could probably add something else, or even get your hands on some fun fur if you want to make it look like actual hair. I just did this for texture. And when I'm done, I'll probably go back with a paintbrush and just add a few more layers of colors to give it more of a flame look. So what I did here, I'm going to reproduce here with these feathers. And the best way to do it is to work from the base up when it came to the eyebrows, I worked from the top down. And I also went and removed with a pair of scissors the thicker parts of each feather, which was the very end piece. That way they don't stick out as you go along with the process. So let's jump right into it, and I'll show you a little fast forward of how I did this. Okay, so we're gonna add this little piece right there. Push it all down. And we're gonna let the glue seep into all the little fibers of the feathers and dry up nice and clean. And that will cover the texture of my Aku flaming beard. The rest of the artwork will be painting the right colors for his green skin, red lips, white nose, white teeth, etc. And then we're gonna attach the eyes and mount it to our foam skull. So now with Aku's face painted and dried, I mounted it onto the main body using these aluminum wires. I just took a wire, bent it into a U shape, bent that on one side, poked it through, and the inside of the skull, opened it up like a flower. So now it's mounted nice and tight right here on the face, which we could then cover using the Aku eyes. Now I went and did angry eyes, but you could of course do whatever you wish. You can make him sad. You could give him his usual pure white open expression. Whatever you think works best for you. Okay guys, I cleaned up because I like to look nice for the final reveal. I also gave us lots of empty space because we're going to put Aku on right now. And he takes up a lot of room. Let's see how our project came together. I feel so powerful while wearing this helmet. How's it look, guys? He turns. He glares at you. And he even talks menacing. This is our Aku helmet. It works very well. I added extra straps on the inside of elastic so it stays on the head very well. Pretty much the elastic is in the same format as you would have a bike helmet. Let me show you. So the elastic on the inside, as mentioned before, goes from the side of the head down under the chin. Oh, sorry. The side of the head in front of the ears under the chin. Then I put a second half attached to that strap going behind the ears, much like a bike helmet or much like a hard hat. So he stays on very strong. And he is still light. There's a little weight to him, but he's still a light prop. And that's Aku, guys. I'm really proud of how this came out. I'm happy with the functioning mouth, the texture and the feathers. And of course, you can use all of the ideas I showed you and tweak them to your own liking. Change how it looks, maybe use a lighter type of foam, whatever works best for you. But that is my Aku head. Maybe in the future, I'll make pointed shoulder pads and pointed elbow pieces and make the full costume. But for now, I think I'll just stick with the big old head because it's a big prop. And now I gotta find a space to put it. Anyway, guys, once again, this is Aku. I am Dante. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the future. Later.